What's up, everyone? Katie and Chris brought the fire. I don't know about you, but I have been a field marketer for the last 12 years, and this event maturity model would have blown my mind years ago. So I'm excited for everyone to be able to take advantage of that. And I'm excited for this session. I have two amazing people with me. I have Stephanie and Steph. I'll get to them in a second. But before we do that, I want to set the table. Let's be honest. We've been to many, many events, I'm sure. We've done events, we've been to them. And creating a seamless registration experience and using attendee insights to improve events is so important in today's world. People's time is valuable, and making it so it's easier on them is something that should be table stakes today, but it's not. So we're going to talk about what you're going to learn today. We're going to really discuss some tactics that will help you progress through that first stage of the maturity model. So with that, I'm going to introduce Stephanie and Steph. Stephanie, why don't you give a quick 30 seconds, who you are, what you do, and then we'll move over to Steph.
Sounds good. Hi. Hi, everybody. It's Stephanie Ordoveza. I head up our B2B event strategy and team here at Guild. I actually started my career in college sports, and that's where I was first introduced to the world of events in a very different way. But then after spending about a decade or so in corporate events in the software industry, hosting all sorts of global events, small, medium, large, I moved to Guild about a year ago. In fact, tomorrow's my 1-year anniversary there. So time flies, but it's been an awesome journey, and I'm excited to chat more.
Amazing. Steph, what about yourself?
Yeah, I also had an interesting background to find my way here, mostly in the bartending space. I feel like a lot of event marketers have that hospitality industry in their background. Moved into marketing, ended up doing experiential for B2C companies at an agency, and then moved in-house, have tried to leave event marketing 3 times now, because I've also been a chief of staff, and I keep coming back for more. So maybe I'm here to stay now that we have a maturity model that I can show all of our executives.
I love that. Yeah, I came up as I went to school for sports management, so I can relate to the sports side. Wasn't a bartender, but I was in sales before I was in marketing. So I feel like I've walked those shoes as well. So I'm excited to dive into this. So we have a couple different questions, and I'm really interested on your thoughts, your insights. I think both of you can really tackle this from a few different angles here. So the first thing I want to dive into is, how do you use the data on your attendees to help shape the event experience? Because I'm sure, between the two of you, you've done lots and lots of events over the years. So Stephanie, I'm going to throw it over to you first, and just kind of, I want to understand what you're doing today. How do you see registrations improving, things like that?
Yeah. And I think, even with the event maturity model, the way we use data here at Guild is very different than how I used it at other companies, right? I think it's dependent on where your events sit in the entire go-to-market strategy. But overall, I think events are such a pivotal part of that events are how people see and feel your brand, right? So it's so important to be able to use the data to make sure that you're building experiences that feel relevant to those people. So at my previous company, we would use all sorts of data, whether it be in registration itself, asking things like, what industry are you a part of? Getting more ideas around the demographics, the persona. What are some topics of interest that they're looking to see at events, and using that time to get that sort of data so that you're really creating programming and content that's relevant. And then also using that for all of your communications to those people, whether it be pre-event, on-site, post-event. It was just a source for us to make sure that we were making events that felt like they were relevant to people. So 1, they commit to coming back. 2, they feel like their voices are heard before they get there. And then also feeling like they got their own kind of personalized journey as well. We get invited, as you guys know, we're in the events industry, but we get invited to so many different things with such a limited amount of time to do that the more bespoke you can make these sorts of experiences, especially as you are talking about to higher level folks and trying to build that into revenue, it's just so important that you're using these data points in any area that you can to just really make sure that you're hitting the right pieces.
Yep, absolutely. And Steph, what about you? I know ZoomInfo does a ton of events, and definitely a large company. So what are you using from a data standpoint to help kind of shape those event experiences?
We use ZoomInfo. Obviously, sorry, had to say it. But from an actual how to shape our content perspective, my number one thing is, and I think we're going to get a little bit more into this, is just actually talking to the people like who are the boots on the ground, the people talking to our customers, the people selling to our customers. So there's a lot of that. In 2023, a lot really kind of came to us. We connected with sales senior leadership. They said, these are the things that people are starting to talk about. This is where people's heads are at. So for example, when we did a very VP plus targeted event series, it was focused around solving that problem for these people. So the goal for me and my team is, if we get these people in a room and if we get them to show up, we want to help them solve a problem while they're there, and they walk away feeling like they know something new or something that they can work towards after the session. And we also made those sessions, we try to do this in all of our events, as interactive as possible, whether it be through a polling function like we just did, or it like live Q&A, because then you get, okay, like maybe we need to take it a step further. If this person's asking about this, luckily they're comfortable to ask for it, but this could be a more widespread problem. And it was funny, as some of them ended up feeling like a safe space for CMOs. So I really love collecting that feedback live, in action, and connecting with sales leaders to hear like what they're hearing out on the streets.
Love that. That's fantastic. Now I'm curious on both of your angles here. Do you look, when you're looking at trends from this data, how are you using the trends that you're seeing? Not only the trends that are out there, whether they're positive or negative, but the comments of the events that you're doing, say if it's a virtual event or whatnot. How are you leveraging those from like a survey perspective to be able to fine tune future events? Steph, I'll throw it over to you first.
Yeah, Stephanie is definitely stronger on this one. I would say collecting pre-registration data is not something I've really dove into until being asked to do this. Now it's like top of mind, right, to speak on this webinar. For us, a lot of times what we're doing is utilizing our own data and saying, okay, we know we want this to be targeting to the VP plus audience because that's what the content is. And we know we want to target finance companies. So we kind of make the assumption, whereas I really love this approach. And this is what I want to try moving forward in 2024, as to like really asking in advance, okay, before we get on this call, like what specifically are you struggling with, or do you want to talk about, and leaning more into that, which I think Stephanie already does in a really cool way.
Amazing. Yeah. And Steph, actually, going back to you, because you talked about bespoke event experiences. I'm a huge believer in that as well. What are the questions that you ask during registration to kind of create a more bespoke event experience?
Do you mean Stephanie?
Stephanie, sorry.
This is what's going to happen with the two Stephanies on the panel, I think it's a mixture. I mean, it's a mixture of, what kind of topics are of interest. We try to guide some of it because we also don't want to set expectations and feel like we can do it all. And the reality is we can only do so much. But, and then the second piece also is, I think you kind of led to this in earlier in the question around surveys, is like, post-event and during the event itself, we try to do a lot of like real-time like feedback, kind of what Steph was talking about, but like looking at some of the NPS scores, reading through the really genuine commentary that people leave of like what resonated, what really didn't work out well, and using those as areas where you can pivot, like really double down on the things that worked really well for your next event, knowing that, like people really love that. But then also looking for those areas of improvement by like listening to your attendees. Like I've made like the simplest changes, which seems so silly. Like for example, like dietary restrictions, which is like the bane of probably all event and planners' existence, is like trying to figure out how to like make meals a thing. But being able to like pivot, like based on different attendees, like personal experiences, like can mean so much. Sometimes I've gotten like the best feedback from like, wow, you guys really adjusted that based on what I said. And I felt myself seen at your next event. And it really like makes a difference with not just how people feel at events, how they feel about your brand, how they experience kind of like the working relationship that you have, that hopefully that has like a kind of longer term effect of how that person then connects with your team and hopefully leads to revenue in the future. It seems like a very simple thing, but taking the time to hear those surveys and like take them to heart to then really affect your planning motion, and bring that back also to your internal stakeholders. We don't just like leave all of the survey feedback within the internal events team. We share it with our sales teams, our product teams, all of the go-to-market strategy holders, so they know and really understand the audience and have that sort of historical context that is helpful for conversations just like outside of events as well.
Love that. That's people first right there for anyone listening.
Yeah.
It's putting people at the center of every interaction and experience. So we actually had a bunch of questions that come in. I want to kind of infuse some of these throughout the conversation. So one of the questions that we got was, what are the best ways to get people to sign up for my event? Stephanie, I'll throw it over to you first. Just keep things moving from the bespoke event experience piece.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough, right? There's like so many things people can sign up for. I think really it's really finding the time. I mean, there's that personal kind of touch, I think makes a huge difference, right? Like we can send all the emails and, you know, invites as we can and bring in like the top guest speakers. I mean, depending on budgets, right? I think where it really makes a difference is when you have a true partnership with your on the boots folks and having salespeople really make those warm connections, warm invitations, help people see what's in it for them to come to your event and feel special for coming, is where those signups start to mean more. And hopefully they have great experiences that they want to keep coming back. I think that's one that's worked for us. And is just like adds a little bit of like a more like a stronger connection than just seeing like another invite come through and via email.
Yep, absolutely. And Steph, I'm going to throw one over to you. How do you get your field teams to rally with you for your flagship event?
Ooh. Or how about any event? I think I actually have notes. I could literally talk about this for an hour. Obviously I will not. I think we have like 5 minutes left. So happy to connect with people offline, as I'm sure Stephanie and Nick are too. But for me, this is going to sound so simple. At the very utmost, you have to make them feel like they're involved in the process. Sales always has something to say. I love salespeople. My dad's a salesperson. You know, half of my family are salespeople, but they love to say things and they love to be a part of the process. And guess what? They are the ones talking to the customers the most. So the best information you can get from them is, you know, to like basically take anything from them. If you have Chorus, which is something like is part of ZoomInfo, go in and pull some meetings with some of our biggest customers and see what they're talking about, see what they're asking about. Show that you're doing the work to help support them in getting it to their goals. Understand their goals. Make sure that you know what their goals are so that when you do go to them and say, hey, we have this coming up, we need your help getting people there. I know your goals are X, Y, and Z. This person has a potential ACV of X, Y, and Z. Guess what? If we can get them there, that could help either accelerate that deal or close that deal. So anything like that to kind of help move through that. Use that data to help craft the content, kind of looping back to that first piece. And then if they have those target account lists, make sure you're really personalizing for that. Stephanie talked about making it a very personal touch. You can do that in a scalable way and have it be successful. And that has been probably one of the biggest things we discovered in 2023 as we tried all these different ways. And then in addition to all those things, really drill down, pull upcoming renewals, pull at-risk customers, pull new potential customers, pair those people with legacy customers, and hand these to sales on a silver platter and say, hey, like, in addition to your target accounts, here are your upcoming renewals. And guess what? That's, 2 months after this upcoming event, have them come in person, meet with our CEO. What do you think? Basically give them everything they need to be successful. And then in turn, you'll be successful.
That's fantastic. I love the idea of like partnering with, boots on the ground team members to maximize the impact for the right events. And you're using the data to make it a more impactful event, which is creating a great experience for everyone. There was another question. There's a couple questions that came in that under the same lens from a survey perspective. Stephanie, I'm going to toss it to you. It's what methods are people using to actually get those survey responses? One thing my team is struggling with since COVID is actually getting responses to digital surveys. So Stephanie, I don't know if you have any thoughts there.
I think one thing that we try to do, because the survey information is so important to us, was when a speaker was at towards like the end of their talk, they would like flash up a QR code right then and there and really speak to it and talk about the importance of getting that feedback then. We weren't getting a lot of traction with like the post-event email and saying, hey folks, click this link. You know, people have already moved on. And like, so catching them in that moment was huge, and making it super easy, really quick surveys too. Like, you don't want anything that's going to take anything longer than maybe 3 to 5 minutes at most. Like a quick NPS score sort of rating, commentary, and maybe 2 more questions. But we try to keep it simple and let the like speaker really talk about how important it was to get that feedback. And I think we try to make it actionable too, so people didn't feel like they were just doing surveys just for the sake of doing surveys. So I think quick, easy, make it really relevant in that moment, so you get them in a captive audience. And then in some of our in-person events, we used our mobile app to do that as well. So like within the session, people saw like the 2 questions, and it was just like a really quick thing.
Love that. Fantastic. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. I know we could go about this forever. Stephanie and Steph, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited, though, because our next segment's all about setting goals beyond the event. I want to bring up my good friend, Patrick Cayley. He's going to kick off setting goals beyond the event. They're going to deep dive into goals and that go beyond just the number of registrations or heads in a room. So thank you, everyone, for spending time. We appreciate it.